Once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination, and at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajnaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita? Dressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita should see in this way, seeing the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form. Emptiness is form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no eye dhatu up to no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the Bodhisattvas have no attainment, abide by means of Prajnaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the 3 times, by means of Prajnaparamita, fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as truth, since there is no deception. The Prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way: Teata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasangate Bodhisoha. Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajnaparamita. And the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajnaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When he said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, Jodambane, Hirodo, Jendra, Baba, Lama, Ibo, Jenzi, Nezong, Andro, Zola, Yazelo. Teata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasangati Bodhisoha Baba Gonjo Zonji Gai Dembe Doji Shil Bodoji Me Bodoji Shivadoji Dagi Baji Metumbi Judanji Jelingo Yezo Ngirin Donya Jejo Shiva Dham Midun Nube Jindan Jewa Dham Dumpa Junjin Bunzon Zon Yoji Raji Dejan Dendari Leyo. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as the Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love. and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples, we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. This jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Medam Guru Radha Mandala Gamneradayami. Yadan Zaji Janam La Janju Badu Dani Jazu Nagi Juni Jibe Zanam Jidrola Menji Zanye Jubajo. Yadan Jaji Janam La Janju Badu Dani Jazu Nagi Juni Jibe Zanam Jidrola Menji Zanye Jubajo. Jadan Jaji Janam La Janju Badu Dani Jazu Nagi Juni Jibe Zanam Jidrola Menji Zanye Jubajo.
What are the large about the large Talandu persuaded Sajina, Ajita Washington, the 10 of the 10 of the Tibetan Buddhism, and never to that level. And never to that level to the Chibuchungu, Chungu large revolution, and drinking large revolution, Chibichimi large revolution. Chibuchungu Tell her. Sambajan want somebody tell Lotu Seva.
Bless her.
And Sambajan want the Jidin Shima to Luchi, but the Jidin Shima to Totem Marba.
Bless her.
Tell her to the lady, landed or lady. What the lady there? Never delete Haji all lady shit about the Shirat Zamba, Son of Judusha to Sonje, and then lady shit on Talamu and Susa shit Zamba. Tumble Lenga to Vegetje. Succès Zambatala and les langues tout dans les dans de temps pas Sajini dîner les dans de temps pas Nabil et dans Kabilende Marba,
Bless up.
Nabilende de la Mota Chiang Chaba, Tadakan Jebutan Bas,
So,
what the Nabilende Catule Marba,
bless up.
Nabilende Motilda. Tadiba Mogo Jut Marba, Tadiba Mogo Jutrova, Tiba Mogo Jut, Tiba Mogo Jutan Mogichu Chuti, what was Lady Mata. Diba Mago Jutan, J. Samajua Tatu Gudan, Shine, what the shade Marba.
Okay. So again, we're looking at Lama Tsong-kha-pa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, which gives an explanation or a commentary on Atisha's lamp for the path to enlightenment. And if we look at it in terms of the outline, we'll find that it is as follows. We begin with how to rely upon the teacher, that is the root of the path. And then the next category of how students train their minds are the stages of how students train their minds after having relied upon the teacher. So under that category, we find an exhortation to take full advantage of a life of leisure and opportunity, and then how to, or the actual way to take full advantage of a life of leisure and opportunity. So under that second category of the actual way to take advantage of a life of leisure and opportunity, we find three major headings. First, training the mind, the stage of the past shared in common with beings of small capacity. Second, training the mind, the stage of the past shared in common with beings of medium capacity. And then third, training the mind, the stage of the path for beings of great capacity. So under the first category, so this is the category that we're currently dealing with, training the mind, the stage of the past shared in common with beings of small capacity, we find various categories. The first category is under that major heading, and we find 3 points. First, the actual training of thought of a person of small capacity. Second, the measure of the attitude of a person of small capacity. And then third, dispelling any misconceptions related to a person of small capacity. So under the first category, the actual training of thought of a person of small capacity, we find 2 categories. Developing the state of mind that strives diligently for the sake of future lives, and then a second category of relying on a means or a method for achieving happiness in one's next life. So in that category of relying on a means or a method of achieving happiness in one's next life, we find the 2 major headings, refuge, and then karma and its results. So we're currently in the section on karma and its results. So when we look at that, we find the major heading under that is developing faith and conviction in karma and its results, which is the root of all temporary happiness and certain goodness. So this is the major heading that we begin with when we start to discuss karma, and then we find three points that are made, reflecting on karma and its effects in general, reflecting on karma and its effects specifically, and then how to abandon non-virtue and engage in virtue once you have reflected on karma and its effects in general and specifically. So under the first category of reflecting on karma and its effects in general, we find 2 major points. One is the actual way to reflect in general, and then the second category is the reflecting on the distinctions among the varieties of karma. So under the actual way to reflect in general, we find the 4 points of the certainty of karma, the magnification of karma, not experiencing the results of actions that you did not do, and the actions you have done do not perish. So that's under that first category of the actual way in which you reflect in general. And then reflecting on the distinctions among the varieties of karma, we find there are 2 major headings. First, the principal teachings on the 10 paths of action, and then the second category, the determination of the results of actions, or the determination of the effects of actions. So under the second category, the determination of the effects of actions, we find 3 major points. First, non-virtuous actions, black actions and their effects. Second, white actions and their effects. Third, a presentation of other classifications of karma. So under the first, black actions and their effects, we find 3 major headings: the actual paths of black actions, distinctions of weight, and an exposition of the effects. So we're currently dealing with the first category, black actions and their effects and the actual paths of black actions. So under the actual paths of black actions, then we find the explanations of the 10 non-virtuous activities, and then we'll get into the virtuous activities, which are the ethics which abandon the 10 non-virtuous activities. Dixon.
Oh, yeah. Ta mungo chu de ngen du lang, de go chu de du langs. What to say the ba ta to mungo chu de le ne le jile na ba so na na ba je. What to je samba jo ta to ga roz chin de ta yi ji na sen ne sen lu ta so na sen de ne sen yi chi ta lu ta de roz chin ta de ya je te ma ta bi ma ro.
Okay.
Wa lu ta ka tu je na an la ri chim de do ta da du ni o le tin je ba de lu.
Okay.
Lo ba ta je ne so de in cha mo ku sul ten sa.
Okay. So we will now be discussing the results of various actions. So when we look at virtue, which is the ethics which abandons the 10 non-virtuous activities, and then we look at non-virtue, we see that they have various results. So virtue gives rise to happiness or the higher realm rebirths, and non-virtue gives rise to the lower realm rebirths and suffering. So when we look at non-virtue and how we break it down into 10 categories, we find there are 3 non-virtues of the body, 4 non-virtues of the speech, and 3 non-virtues of the mind. So we've gone over the 3 of the body, killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. We've gone over the 4 of the speech, lying, harsh words, divisive speech, and senseless speech. And then we've gone over the 3 of the mind, covetousness, malice, and wrong view. But we're going to go a little bit over wrong view again. So we're going to then turn to page 226 in the English.
Ta lota sana ta lota ina sheba im chanu ta zu sheba deme de zongo bala ina zu da sheba deme de zong ana lota sheba in marba sheba la megi sheba na sheba ji sheba le ji sheba yi ji sheba song yo marba song go na lota pe ji yi ji sheba in jero yi ji sheba la lo she ta lo ten ten ni na lo she yi ji sheba lo she to ba lo she wa tan ji le lota lo de ma lota ta lo ba ta na ta kan de ne jo nga shi ka jo nga shi me ba ta wa le ju ne me ba ta wa nga me ba ta wa zo me ba ta wa shi me ba ta wa ye bi ju nga me ba ta wa de le lota lo de ma de kon de ju lota ta den jin sa da da wo de ba ma tu ba jin sa da da wo lo tu su nga lo tun du ju lota what the Lota Pejikani is than the 2 Magajun and Lota the Kundij Lota is Kundij Lota, Lende Mabatawa, Legend Mabatawa, Chukonjus Mabatawa, Deji Mabatai, Shebat and Jilla, Lota Lodamadra.
So when we look at the classifications of words, so when we look at functioning thing, we can divide functioning thing into 3 categories: form, consciousness, and non-associated compositional factors. So when we look at this wrong view, or this classification, we would find that this categorically falls under consciousness. So when we look at consciousness, we divide it into 6 categories: eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, tactile consciousness, and mental consciousness. So when we look at this wrong view, we would say that this categorically falls under mental consciousness, and consciousness being among one of the categories of the 3 of functioning thing. So when we look at wrong view, we can categorize it into 2 different categories. One is the dismissal of existence. So the wrong view that states there is no 3 jewels, there is no form, there is no karma and its results, there is no Four Noble Truths, etc. This is one type of wrong view. So I've still got to look at the Tibetan. I brought a dictionary today. So this is the one type of wrong view. And the second type of wrong view is this established wrong view, or almost this, I don't want to say innate until I look it up, but it's the grasping at true establishment, this wrong view that's pervading all the time. So this first wrong view is the wrong view that sees the existence as non-existence, and the second type of wrong view grasps at true establishment. So when we look at the two categories, this is what we would find. So I forgot one thing from before. I apologize. So when we look at these various non-virtuous actions, and now we're specifically looking at wrong view, there are four aspects for each of them in order for there to be a completion. There has to be the basis, there has to be the attitude, there has to be the performance, and then there has to be the culmination or the completion. So now we'll look at wrong view in relation to those aspects. So I've from before, Rinpoche said those four aspects and related them to all the 10. And when he related it back to this one, I remembered I had forgotten to translate it. So I just wanted to go back to it. Okay, Dixon, tu chena.
Ta lobata yebi de nos. Ta lobata yebi kunju yorota. Kunju yobare. Kunju yobata na lotende. Kunju mebata na luluji marbe. Le junde yore. Le junde mebata na lota. Kunju an zo mebata na lota. Da mebata na lota. What the lota. What the yebi de nos. Sambala son le duché. Sambala montant, un duché dans Colon son marbe. Duché ne coban débutant là, d'abord de chez Baos, coban débutant là, l'endé mebata baïna, mebata de l'endé mebata, what the l'endé meba, l'endé yoba de dembare, meba dembare tibaïna, l'obata gentile, un cousin l'endé de mebata dembare samba. What the duché de imbare.
Ledre mepa
demba. Demba do sheba.
Okay.
Chawanga meba demba do sheba. Zu meba tawa demba kangal ja injere. Nyomun sumbu kanrus da nyomun docha nguluba tawa shedan nguluba tawa tomu nguluba tawa sun ejirwa.
Lessa.
Kolone koban deba doba. Kolon de ta chawanga yeba koban deba doba. Meba tawa doba. What the imbare. What about Jujana?
So we're now going to look at wrong view and relate it to the four aspects. So we begin with basis. So the basis of wrong view are existent objects. So when we look at wrong view versus correct view. The wrong view would be to believe that the three jewels do not exist. So the three jewels do exist. So the correct view is the belief in their existence. We would use that as an example, or we could use karma and its results as an example. Karma and its results do exist. So this is a correct view. The belief that these karma and its results do not exist is a wrong view. So when we look at the basis for wrong view, we find it to be an existent object. And here, an existent object we're feeling is not existent. So we're seeing its non-existence. So that is the wrong view. So if an existent object, seeing its existence is a correct view. Seeing an existence, non-existence is the wrong view or incorrect view. So the basis is existent object. So next it says, of the three aspects of the attitude, the perception is perceiving to be true the meaning of a mistaken denial of the of an existent object. So here, the perception is perceiving that there is something that exists that doesn't. So the perception is that there is no existence of karma and its results. There is no existence of a previous life. There will not be an existence of a future life. So here, this second part is this perception, is the perception that there is no existence of these existent things. So this is the second point. Then the affliction is any of the three mental poisons. So here, this would be the basis, the wrong view, which is motivated or under the influence of any among the three poisons of attachment, hatred, or desire, or delusion. So wrong view influenced by attachment, wrong view influenced by hatred, wrong view under the influence or influenced by delusion. So this would be the next category of the affliction under the major heading of attitude at this point. So the perception, now we've gone over the affliction, and then the motivation. So these are the 3 points within attitude. So the motivation is the desire to deny the existence of an existent object. So the desire to deny that there is a previous life, that there are the 3 jewels, etc. So you're denying the existence of things that are existence. So this is the third point, the motivation. The third point within the second point. So now we've gone over basis and attitude.
Ta je samba jua. Ta jua di marta meba ta andoba. Meba ta andobi. Meba ta andoba. Andobi kobande bandoba wote meba ta andoba je. Jua ne samba tella jua tamba was. Jua said meba ta jawa khaji meba ta andoba inanda. Le junde meba ta andoba inanda. Kasure maybe Jutain Tan, maybe Sanlu Mokatan, Joa Lagos, Marbe, maybe Samba, maybe Johaji, maybe Jutain, and then Kitcha Mobishigare, Sanlu Mobatangara, Legend, maybe Jutain, could Jutain Mobishi de Euro, what the Joa saying, Marbe, Joan and Samba, Tella Joa Tamba, Tella Jiren Doje.
Okay.
Jula Kobandeba, Debala Kobandeba, Shebala Kobandeba, and the UB, Mobala Kobandeba Jindoje, Lotaka Tutu, Tejetrendua, Jula Koban, Leba Shebatan, Never Sheba, Meto Sheba Osa. Tal Leshe is not go out to the Marbe, go out to the Leshe, Nieshite, Magochute, and Dungejo, and then Magoatan. And Niashi Magoatan, Mago Maris, and the Ujo Leje Goyu Maris. What is Kubandeba, Jula Kubandeba is? That changes on Injera. Debola Kubandeba ne Leshik Naming in Debo, and the Dendro the what to you Maris. Niashik Magoa Ginami Debo, Niasunta, Dungayu Maris. What did go about the devil go about the Bamadua?
Ale Namin Depo Nason Dandu, yeah.
What is it? Devil of Koane, Tenye, Nami Medo Sheba Osa. What about Tijuyada?
Bless her. So now we've gone over the basis. And then we've gone over the 3 parts of attitude. Now we can go over performance. So performance is the initiation of the attitude. And then we'll get into 4 types of performance. But the initiation of the attitude, which is a view that views existence as non-existent. So that views the karma and its results as non-existent. So then one engages in various wrong thinking and establishes this wrong view which sees the existent to be non-existent by various reasons and by thinking about it and by talking about it and so forth. So this is the actual performance, is the initiation of that attitude that views an existent to be a non-existent. the view of non-existence is literal, the view of non-existence. And then this performance is then, Rinpoche said, establishing reasons, thinking about it, talking about it, etc. And it says, moreover, there are 4 types of such performance. Mistaken denial of causes, effects, activities, and existent entities. Mistaken denial of causes is thinking that right or wrong behavior do not exist, and so forth. So with this, here, when we look at performance, there are 4 types. So the first category, mistaken denial of causes, here is thinking that where it says right and wrong, this is referring to virtuous and non-virtuous, and implicitly referring to their results, so that virtuous deeds give rise to happiness, non-virtuous deeds give rise to suffering. So here, this denial here is the denial that this relationship exists. So here, that virtue, the denial that virtue and non-virtue give rise to their various results. So happy. So here, this assertion is that that happiness or unhappiness isn't necessarily caused by virtue or non-virtue. So here, that is the first point. It says, and so forth. Mistaken denial of effects is thinking that the fruitions of these sorts of behaviors do not exist. So when we look at these actions or these behaviors, we find that there are fruitional results. So this denial is the denial that the fruitional results of our non-virtuous activities are suffering and rebirth into the lower realms of cyclic existence. So here one is denying the fact that there are these fruitional results that are linked to the negative behaviors.
Tā dēmbā shīla yāpa yīna kuññu dēmbā dōngiā dēmbī chū mārbē, lā dēndu ngū dēngi tā tēchū nāma rōwa, anē dōngiā kī chū kuññu mē tō, dēbō dōngiā mē tō, nē chū lāñchī dēmbā mē tō, dēbō ngū dēmbā mē tō, kōndī wā tō sī yīmbā tā, mōmbō kīndū rō tā mārbē bē. Dēmbā shīla yāpa yīna, kuññu chū dōngiā dēbō, anē chū kuññu mē tō, dēbō dōngiā mē tō, जो लांचे देंबा जब गुदे में तो वो दिन के कुबंदे कुंदे रो कुंदे मैं बतावा
Oh, Meidao, okay, Meidao. So here, when we're looking at fruitions, when we look at the Four Noble Truths, and we find that suffering and origin have their cause and effect relationship. So in that path and society, the Goden and Lamden Chu Lasun.
Goden Lade Juro, Goden Taten, Devon de Jam, Julande Meto. Lesser.
So when we look at wrong view and fruitions, when we relate them, to the Four Noble Truths, we would be asserting that there is no origin of suffering. So there is, when we look at the truth of suffering and origin, we find that there's a cause and effect relationship between those two. So the wrong view would be the assertion that there is no origin of suffering. There is no origin that causes suffering. And then when we look at the last two noble truths, the truth of origin, the truth of cessation and the truth of path, we find there's also a similar relationship there with the cessation coming about by the path, or arising from the path. I'll use that word loosely, arising from the path. So here the denial would be that this relationship exists. One would be stating that cessation is not exist. Cessation does not arise from the path.
What the Julo Kuban Devan, Devolo Kuban Devan need what to see Mukuji, Ta Shebala Kuala Son or Son Le Shebala Kuban Deva to Son Sabantan, Zimba Shebi, and Zimba Shebala Kuanes, and Padamame to Shebatavos, what the Kasure Shebala Kuban Devatala, Shebala Kuban Devatala, Sabun Debatan, Zimbala. 고반데바데 사면 당에 파로 아미 두군 보고 제거로 파마요 말레스 고반데바들로 워들라 그레스 파도 마면도 셰바오사 단롱기 셰발라 고반데바네 지된 하마메도스 정하마요 말레스 정하마도 용요 말레 너네 셰만도 요 말레 워드스면도 지된 하시메도 셰바오 니제 저런 셰발라 고와네 저런 셰발라 고와네 sentient judy jiwa me do sheba was jiwa la nge ji ji mare judy jiwa yo mare nge ne jiwa yo mare ne wonga le jiwa yo mare treasure mare wodin ko bande suit jiro
okay
yeah
tuche. So next we get into, so we've gone over the first two, mistaken denial of causes, and then mistaken denial of effects. Now we get into the third, which is the mistaken denial of activity, and then it says of three types. So mistaken denial, so we begin with the first one. Mistaken denial of the activities of planting and retaining seeds is thinking that there are no fathers and mothers. So here, the mother retains the seed in the womb, the father plants the seed. So here, this idea is that based on these activities, that there are seeds being planted, that there is no father or mother. So this is the first point, the first mistaken denial of activity. Second, mistaken denial of activities is of going and coming. It's mistaken that there are no former or future lives. So here, this is the denial of the existence of previous lives or of future lives. So this is the second point that's made. That's good. And then the third is a mistaken denial of the activity of birth is thinking that living beings cannot have spontaneous birth. So here, this is one example among the four types of birth that can be taken. So when we look at potential births, we have birth from the womb, birth from the egg, birth from heat and moisture, and then spontaneous birth. So here, this word spontaneous birth is just used as one among the four. So it's this mistaken denial of the activity of birth is thinking that living beings cannot have a spontaneous birth, cannot have birth from a womb, cannot have birth from egg, cannot have birth from heat and moisture. So this is the third point.
다 제반데도 여빙업을 고고하네 여빙업을 고반데 고하네 다좀바수 메도스 다좀 메도 아니 네트 바바메도 라제 바바메도 샤선 바바메도 사제 메도스 와든데 고반데들 여빙업을 고반데 바세 지로와 메도 셰바오자.
So the fourth type of performance of wrong view, mistaken denial of existent entities, is thinking that arhats and such do not exist. So here, it is a belief in the non-existence of existence. So here, relating to arhats, or to hearers superiors, solitary realizers superiors, bodhisattva superiors, Buddhist superiors. So believing that all of these types of beings do not exist. Rinpoche, the kansai in kuna? The tama.
Tama dajomba me to say that.
The dajomba me, the dajomba shansen papa, the nyentu papa, ranje papa, the kansa yimba kuna?
Yenjima dajomba su metos dile mamoko jojiro dajomba su metos.
Yene the zoo yomare.
Debaji meto. And never knew meto.
The jepa. Okay. So this fourth category, I asked Rinpoche if it was specific to beings, and he said no. This could also, you would say, Four Noble Truths or the Two Truths could also be in that as well. So I just asked if it was specific because all the examples were types of beings.
That lotaje samba joa. 다 타도 말be 타도
Lessa.
로다가 타도네 고아다바 녜바 오스 고바다바 녜바 녜바데 네 로다가 타도레 로다가 타도도 용알라 야 체슈는 뭔가 상고레스 고바다바 녜바 오 근데 야 녜도데사 다마들 나세 뇌세 타도도래야 네 nga chagu do de na ji ne lo dan de le de nga chagu res ne du des nga jo na she je da wa ji me she bi mo bi sentence she je da wa na on chu ma ro chu ku de ba to de ba ni she je da wa ji to me de she ba je da je che ba yo ma de 매버다 생도도 담보들의 창고레스 시작자다와진도 매셰베 모비 센다스 모비 센도에 나로다 타도 용거래 때문에 용 말레스
The tambo.
담보 나가 담보 들어
Nga yimba. Okay, then chitta ale ale. Dandan dangunzo.
모비 센다스 담보 이지로
Okay. Tuchena.
니바다 디발라가이 트라슈지 센턴스 디발라가이 디바 마고라가이 안 센슈 잡고 그래서 트라슈지 센턴 대연나 로닥 타도도 용 그래 대면나 로닥 타도 용 말했어 니제 다 손바드 취진 매비 취라 네버투비 로바르 준도 쇼비 센탄사 취지 매비 출라 내가 로바도비 준도 쇼비 센선들레 다 저와 같이 매바 레준디 매바도 속걸로 네 취지 많이 베지 레준디 매비 주세 konjusu mebi juse tilsanu mutane chuji mai veje so marbeta lende meba ta konju meba tu ngalo on san tane mebi juse ji juse luba san tan de joro o tin sare
lessa
hane chuji mebi chula ngaba lobara junto shobi sentence chuji mai veje de bare sonrbe ta jimba ta chujin ta jinsi ta leshe su me to sheba ta jimba ta su gawa marbe jimba ta na gawa ro na gawa re chujin je na gawa re jinsi je na gawa re o to su leshe re gawa re leshe gawa to yo mares me ta na lota me to she Kobande be Radunya be sent on them was Kobande was on the go Sangi Shuna the Manya the King Gores, the Manana and the Lota Moji young Mares, the Yasun Yungres Tangaba the Marvel, Lote, Mota Magis, Lota just on the Mota Major, Mota Magin Emila, Nabanyo Meshebe, Sanji, and Nebi sente ngabata da de bausa nga tere sonta tanga chansona lota zuba yongre tanga de masana ne lota zuba yongre tatu yongmares
Nene jepa the jimbadan dang chupa bull the gewa yomari the gare sano gare be
jimba tawata chujin tawata ta gawa to so leshe o to su yomares lagosa ta
the leshe mai
jimba da chujin da jinsi da leba sheba su mentos ta kanda gawa mesla de mar
gewa me okay
leshe su gawa ro o te laba yin an lota zuba yongre tende laba mai ne yong mar so de jire
Lesso. Okay. So we have the last category, which will be culmination or completion. And when we look at this, we'll find that as the other ones, covetousness and harmful intent, we find this full-fledged idea of a full-fledged action. So when we look at the category, and we look at the outline Jamyang Sheba puts together, we find the three categories, which is the actual completion, or the actual culmination, or abbreviated culmination, and then we have a full-fledged culmination, and not a full-fledged culmination. So these will be the categories that we go through. So we begin with the 5 attitudes that are necessary to be present in order for a full-fledged culmination or a full-fledged wrong view to be completed. So we begin with number 1. An attitude of confusion due to not knowing objects of knowledge exactly. So here this is referring to the two-sided, two aspects of each object of knowledge, the conventional truth and the ultimate truth. So here, being confused due to not knowing the conventional and ultimate truth of objects. So not knowing objects exactly, not knowing their conventional and not knowing their ultimate truth. Here, a violent attitude due to delighting in sins. This word violent, maybe it should be more like a strong or forceful. Not violence almost infers anger. This is more of a strong, just a strong attitude. A strong amount of delight in sin, or forceful delight in sin. In this word delight is usually translated as joy. So delighting strongly, finding great joy in sin, or a large amount of joy in sin. Third category, an attitude that continuously operates in the wrong way because of pondering improper mental teaching. So here, this is thinking there are no 3 jewels. There are no karma and its results again and again. So we would have this improper mental conduct that would be solidifying our wrong view. So it's continuously making reasons and justification for this wrong view. For instance, that there is no karma and its results, and then thinking again and again and establishing reasons for this. Fourth is an attitude that is impaired because of a mistaken denial that thinks that such things as gifts, religious offerings, burnt offerings, and right behavior do not exist. So here, this right behavior is referring to virtuous behavior. So it's this impaired, this wrong attitude is believing that these things are not virtuous. So it's mistaken because these things are virtuous. The mistake is thinking that they are not. And then number 3, number 5, an attitude that is dominated due to these wrong views by shamelessness and obliviousness about the determination to be free of its faults. So here, this shameless oblivion related to wanting to be free from wrong view. So these are the 5 points, and I think I got everything in there.
This one.
Yeah, it's not decent.
Yeah. What about the Luda Je Samba Joa Tattoo? What is it about Zundaris? The Zundaris, Marva. That and the ma Lobatawa, Jan, you mentioned what the Katan was not taking to Judas, to what you were is. Janji, what the Jeremiah to what you lose. Tell to Judas, to Ju. Tell General Tozomo. Lobatawa Jan, you mentioned. Lota Tandanga Magawa Chugan Lota de Kundig Lota Guris, Kundig Lota, Lay Juni Mabatawa, Joangashi Mabatawa, Conscious Mabatawa, Kundig Lota Gure, Lota Mabu, Lota Samajagman, Kundig Lota Dres, what the Tubacho was reta, Lobatawa Jan, you meji, Lota Mabu, you are the Demago Chugan on the Lota de. Lota Saman Shagmara, Kundig Lota, Tsong-kha-pa Mapa, Le Junde Mapa, Le Shet and Yeshe Mapa, Ju Mapa, and Deba Mapa, Tendege Lota Jagures. Yemeji, the Konala Lota Shi Sombanes, the Konala Lota Mago Chugan on the Lota Sombane, Mago Chugan on Lota de Gawatanji Jujis, Lota Gazan Jones and Deren Lota Gawatanji Jujins, Conchu Mabata, the legend Mabata to Ruge, and Nasu Gawale, the Wajuning in Nebatan, Dendujiag in Nebatan, Tabatuji Neba Euro, Nebatel water Lota de Canoe was Saban de Saban Nuguja Neba Euro, Malayuna te Nuvat Sine, Nuja Maveren, Otenda, what the Lota, what's the Sumodere. Lobata Ajan, Yomeji, the Kona, Lodashi Sumba than de Mago Jun and Lobata and de Kundeji Lodan de, and Gaza Tanji Jujin, Gaza Tanji, the Wajin Nubat Jonagres, Jujin, and Dibal and Dogo, Dogorshu Batan, Tumbi na. Loda Tanji Chishu in Michel Rosa. What the Gazak Ganjon the Gre Dibal the Wanju Canamres, Omarbe, the Loda Duena, Dibasale, Ramebasai, Dogur Shubatan, Tumbina, Lobata Tanji Chishu in Os, Mago Juna Lotate, and Loda Tanji and Chishu, Kundig Lutares. What is Jaji, what is German to what you do on it?
Gary Kasson, the Pui, the Jadan, Gary Kasson.
Pay Jadan, Digital or Digital. Digital.
Kanga.
Oh, yeah, the Tanda.
The Lotani do so. The
Lobata, Jen, you merges as Madu, Pay de Loda. Lobata Ajan, Target the Sugar, Target Sugar, Lanson Water. Cheshunga Shetadule, Cheshunga Sana, Lodak Tattoo to Yungore, not the Mason, Tattoo to Yungomares, not Shetarawa.
Less so.
They should go to the Tata, Lobata's leg of the water.
Less so.
Lobata Ajan, you major Watergay, and German Tobajo knows.
Less so.
Lota in and Mago Juna, Lota Chaumares, Lota Mobuares, Mago Juna, Lota de Legende Mabatan, Chong Hashi Mabatan, what then Tai Kundig Lotare, take Gital Junagre, and Debasabal Dogushoba is on Lotan Chishutres, what the Tujures.
Less so.
Yeah.
Then 8 sash. Okay.
What
so we've gone through the 5 points that make it for a wrong view to be full-fledged. So these 5 have to be present in order for it to be a full-fledged. So then the next points that are made are what qualifies it as a not full-fledged wrong view. Then the summary is if it is not, all 5 are not present. So this is what would make it not full-fledged. And then some doubts arise relating to the other 10 non-virtues. So whether or not this is to be applied and so forth. So we read. See, I just want to make sure I don't lose my spot over here. We'll burn the seed. Although it is certainly the case that there are other wrong views, only this is called wrong view, for it is the greatest of all wrong views, and it is through this wrong view that you sever your roots of virtue. Further, it is this wrong view that is conducive to your doing whatever sins that you want. So when we look at this type of wrong view, when we look at the wrong view that's denial of the existence of things, denial of the existence of karma and its results, and so forth, we find that this type of wrong view is the coarsest form that we would find all of the others categorically fall under. So if we get rid of this wrong view, then we're able to, like the seed that grows into a sprout that can be extinguished by fire, and then no longer has the ability to produce a sprout. If we get rid of wrong view, then likewise these other negativities that are influenced by it will also disintegrate, or also go away. So we find that the wrong view to be at the basis of these other behaviors, so this denial of the existence of things, so that it makes it conducive to do whatever you want to do, whatever other of the negative behaviors among the 9 non-virtues that are left, and other non-virtues not included, that you want to do. So this type of wrong view, and again, Rinpoche is enforcing it's that category of wrong view that denies the existence of karma and its results and so forth. And that's it. And this, when we go back to this improper mental conduct, I just left one thing out. So when we're going back to an attitude that continuously operates in a wrong way because of pondering improper teachings, one is establishing signs and reasonings for such things as the lack of existence of future lives and previous lives. If I might have said that, I saw something written down I didn't think I said. Rinpoche. So we'll take a short break. We'll be right back. So we found out that one of the categories, the main category, is underestimation. That's the name of it, where we find the denial of the existence of we have the two kinds of wrong view. One is the wrong view of the lack of true establishment that sees, so that's underlying. And then we have this other wrong view, which is the main wrong view that all of these others fall categorically under. That's called underestimation. So we finally found that term. So let's get started then. Okay.
somba ne mago chu na lota de wote ne lota de gaza thajil ne ne chu jing de balan do go shue ba ta tumbe na lota thajil nan chiju res lota thajil nan chiju re ta nga so tujun nga so de nyabo to so ko sha da jina de bal ne ne res de bal ne do nge jinu ne ba kale kale ta ne res ane lota to kondu tene gawal dawajinu nebatal neongres shida to ondini remude kanganda ka tu jashe beje
although so when we look at what qualifies performance of a not a full-fledged long view, we find as if the five are not present. It says, although it is certainly the case that there are other wrong views, only this is called wrong view, for it is the greatest of all wrong views, in that it is through this wrong view that you sever all your roots of virtue. So here, wrong view has the ability to get rid of our roots of virtue, as does anger. And when we look at how we purify our non-virtues, we do so by application of such things as the four opponent powers. And by applying the four opponent powers, it begins to sever or get rid of or purify our non-virtuous activities that we've engaged in. Likewise, when we have wrong views or become angry, those work in the opposite direction and sever our virtues. So the four opponent power practice sever or get rid of our non-virtues, purify them, and these negativities that we have, wrong views and anger, sever our virtue, our root virtues.
what the battle what to do dress on that to do that the wall man the do tell us so job that tell us so job as tenma and the mago a chuki do it she was do it mago a jude and you can do what she sana what to do it she was that the mago a chuki no ne tombe so job ta c'est tout dans ne sens on peut tout son dit tombe chez jins de cha kondu tomo songa la tene ne suju le yongore chetu yongore ne sen yongores ano ko tashin bade ne ju zu na de garasana ne shedang de tashin bade shedang la tene ne suju be cha chang shi gre ne chetu cha chang ne sen cha chang wo de shedang de tashin ba shi gres 도저히 잡아서 어때 자지부터 가도 도저히 잡아라고 되게 도저히 잡아 땡고레스 소주다 제주다 내세 먹어 주고 너네 소주빌레다 제주다 내세 송부터 안에 도송 지송바 시시 도송 라텐 되자 공로 시당 라텐네 조요레스 좀버 시라스 시당 그 타신 바시 타신 바 저 타투반데 시당레 시당 타신 바시 진스 송지 다드네 마진레당 로인당 나센송네 도송 지송바 시라사 마진레당 로인당 나센송부터 ane docha kun tomo songa la ten jegre te nane docha kone tashin ba shegre sata majin la da ane loyin da nasen so ju zu de docha ka tashin ba shegre res
Ducha mena
docha meno tashin ba yong me da
tatu no yo mare
tatu
yo okay tashin tatu chipa
kale ji kale ga ju mane
Dixon
ya odi ji ju 조지 라고 조지 자지베 나빌렌데 다 나빌렌데 가도들레 뭐다 조지 지차바다 레랑 잡아 사지송 되고다 단데 조지 잡아가도 들에도와
조지 안제 조지
조지는 다 수주빌레다 네 치주다 내선송도 조바 용와라 안에 너무 가르고 그래서나 temu tashin ba shigen temu re dosha shidan temu son la jiba de yuwa re tashin ba shigen de shidang shi yuwa res ta ma jin le dan lu yin dan na se son ba de tu son wa le den jida jiga de tu ba shigen dosha ga ji yuwa res tu dosha yin ba de dosha wa ta kale ji ju shan kale ju tela ma
So although it is certainly the case that there are other wrong views, only this is called wrong view, for it is the greatest of all wrong views, and that it is through this wrong view that you sever your roots of virtue. Further, it is this wrong view that is conducive to your doing whatever sins you want. So with respect to these 10 non-virtues, you may undertake killing, offensive speech, and malice with any of the 3 mental poisons. So you can undertake them with attachment, hatred or aversion or delusion, but in order for there to be completion, but you bring them to culmination with hostility. So hostility here is anger or aversion. So this has to be present in order for there to be a culmination or a completion related to these specific non-virtues. Next, you may undertake stealing, sexual misconduct, and covetousness with any of the 3 mental poisons, attachment, hatred, or delusion, but you bring them to culmination with only attachment. So if attachment is not present, we don't have a culmination of any among those, stealing, sexual misconduct, or covetousness. So we found the first rely upon hostility, and then the next rely upon attachment.
This one. Tal loda la de loda de tu sonji zomba shi las tu deja konde shi dans la den loda je yoares loda ne tashin ba shi gen ju zu da de temu tashin ba yino comme shebi on ge tene le junde la so me ba tan go da temu kone ane tatu ba shi dos what about the what the zoji ki chaba so tere
the zun tama
does not jin do da so su je ba je che du je no sen so bo de do so ga la ten che gre de ta shin ba shin ga shi dang res shi dang la ten ta shin ba shi res da ma jin la do lo yin da na sen so ne do so ga la ten che gre de Dosha kune tashi ba shigaris. What there is one that then Zun Tama and Si Jeba de and Tomba dan Tashimba Nika Sonja Jishinsa Junji Tama J Nachi Marva Nachi Songa de Tosonga Latin Jigre Tosonga Tashima Shigaris.
Less so.
What did it? Okay,
then they luta, they did Timu Yungu. Okay, so we'll do. Okay.
주인도 참아도 치지 가치로 가치. 저송부터 도송갈 된 제거래 타신 바야 도송갈 때는 타신 바시 그랬어. 대지 달로다 도송갈 된 제거래 타신 바도 뜨무랬어. 뜨무고. 뭐 되게 두버시 받된 거요사. there's 마도도 어더래.
Then C2 Kabiore.
제주 다만 루사래. 수저바 제주 니발레도다. 수저바 제주도 너 신사도다.
Okay, two china.
준 참아
Lessa.
나치 송부대 도송갈된 제거래 도송기 타시 제거래스. 저는 로다 도송갈된 제거래 때문에 타시 제거래스야.
So then, as for lying, divisive speech and senseless speech, you may both undertake them and bring them to culmination with any of the three mental poisons. So any among the three: attachment, hatred, or delusion can bring those negativities to culmination. And then the next wrong view requires delusion. So it says, I just lost my place. You may undertake wrong view with any of the three mental poisons, but you bring it to culmination only with delusion. So here, so the lying, divisive speech, and senseless speech don't require anything specifically. It just that any among the three mental poisons and wrong view requires delusion. Dikso.
령하게 뒤는 레장 인라 네 sembajubi 인베 레장 인노스 네 나세 어떻게 갈된 것은 자제비 어때 레당 랑기 잡아된 거스 레랑기 잡아 네 령하게 르질레 나게 나와지 뒤요 말베 뒤인데 레다 라니가 이 레라니가 이 지나선에서 로다 송부터 레이 라마이 네 이송 주제 라이데 능안류 라인 베저 네 르가가 뒤주제 라이데 든류 라인 베저 네 레라니가 레이드 조인 베저 레이나 조인 미쳐서 시다 마유 네 모시면서도 타주장 너도 봐서 본 사람들도 텐딜해도 돼 도주제되다 어느 시들 조다 마와제 너네 령아 뒤인데 레이나 조인 미쳐서 시다 마이라 그랬어 오마 타주하게라 그랬어 모시면서도 타주장스 근데 레고데 시다마이 조인스건도스 오마 탄주이장 조인라 그레스 어디 잡아 시행도스다 자지베 달 레이나 라이 마주쇼스 이지송도 말베 이송도 라이 레마이데 조마이베스 모시메조도 탄주 조마이베스 라이데 난두 라이베스 어디 잡아 땡도송데
Lay in a zoo yimi machap show.
Ils sont
Luta.
Ils sont chrétiens.
Ngendu lan yin beche.
Ngendu lan yin beche. Lan yin de ngendu lan yin beche. Le mai de zo mai beche. What the so do da. Kuzu lo inche tu la.
Okay. So this next section, we start to look at the different qualities of the karma. So Jayan Sheba says the difference between path and karma. Path and action. So this section we're going to go over difference between path and action. So when we look at the various non-virtues of the body, we find 3 non-virtues of the body: killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. We find 4 non-virtues of the speech: lying, harsh words, divisive speech, and gossip. And then we find the 3 non-virtues of the mind: covetousness, harmful intent, and wrong view. So these first 7, so when we look at the classification of action, we find that according to the Great Exposition School, the Vibhashika school, and the Madhyamika Prasangika school, the Middle Way Consequence school, we find that karma is classified as necessarily form. So we say that karma is form. But then we have to say that then the actions of the mind are consciousness, and they are pathways because they produce the lower realms of rebirth. So when we look at these different words, pathway and karma, we would say that they are pathways, but they are not form because they are consciousness. So we have to then look at this. So we have to look at the seven of the body and the speech, we can say are form, and therefore are karma. But then when we look at the mind, when we look at the classification of what karma is, we see that it's form, and then we ask the question, then the karma is the action of the mind, action, because it's not form. Then the yichi lei yin, yin ma yin.
Yichi le song doa, song de la yi le ma yis. Le ma yi zu ma yi be ye.
Okay, they danta
yi. Le nga ge du de le yin la yis. Ni ga yin la.
They love some.
Le nga ge le dan, le nga yi song kan rong le dan la ma da chao kan do.
Ni ga yin ba.
La yin na le yin bi cha. Or line le ma cha. Le yin na la yin bi cha. La yin na le ma cha. Yi le song. La yin de ngan du la yin be.
Okay.
Le ma yi zu ma yi be.
Okay, nge data lasso.
What the kalelo?
So I just it was exactly correct. So when we look at the classifications, according to the according to the Vibhashika school and the Middle Way Consequence school, action is necessarily form. So this is how this classification takes place. The other schools, the other tenets, classify action differently. But in the lowest school and the highest school, we find it classified as form. So when we look at the distinctions or the difference between path and action, we have to say, if it is a path, is it necessarily an action? If it is an action, is it necessarily a path? So we look at it in those terms. So when we look at the first seven non-virtues, the non-virtues of the body and non-virtues of the speech, the three non-virtues of the body and four non-virtues of the speech, we can say that these are both pathways and action. They're action because they are form, and they are pathways because they're pathways to the lower realms. When we look at the mental activities, the non-virtues of the mind, we can say that those non-virtues are pathways, but they are not action, they're not karma, because they're not form. So this is how we would look at it. So if we look at it in terms of that debate, if it is path, is it necessarily action? The answer is no. Show something that is path, not action, you would say the wrong view. Wrong view is a path to the lower realms, but not action because it's not form. So then you would say, if it is action, it is necessarily path. And then the answer is yes. If it's an action, it is a pathway to something. If one is engaging in action, it's a pathway to something. Then the lumaten, lay in.
Lomata le da yinjiro le ai me
Lie in.
Lomata lomata to su ta cha yinji maro a
Gangin sine
ta
then
me
lie in.
go churo chu non san
Okay,
no
okay.
me go chu
Decent.
ti ba me go chu no ne le ba ka ju la yin ba ka ju
Let's so.
le da la ni ka yin ba ka ju so na du la yin le ma yin ba ka ju so me go chu no ne la yin le yin la le ma yin ba so
Let's so.
yi so
So
le la ni ka yin ba le nga du
less so. So when we look at this in terms of classifications, if we would say which of these among the 10 are both karma and path, we would say that the 7 the non-virtues of the speech and of the body are both, something that is a common locus between the two. And then if we were looking for something which is a pathway but not action, we would say any among the non-virtues of the mind, the three non-virtues of a mind. These are pathways to the lower realms, but not actions because they're not form. So this is how we would analyze these in terms of classifications. We'll have time at the end for a question. May kashe triwa yure.
Oh yeah. Draw.
The karma junga then ngatsu triwa.
That then the Jen so barbarwa. Tak hade what it tada le samba ne le ilas leje lama inosa. Samba ne le lama isondu yiji le son de jiroda. Lama inos lama itzo mai beje. Le nga ki le jile son temps nga ki na ba je duro da. Dun de le jayin la ne lain mi jusen karasana samba jubishi imbe samba jubishi imbe lain yinos what is it do le nga ke dun de le lain de ngasun penji lain be sanan digro ngasun penji lain de samba jubishi imbe what the ngachiba hero da.
Among these 10, intentions are actions, yet they are not paths of action. The 7 non-virtuous actions of body and speech are not only actions, but are also paths of action, because body and speech are the basis of the intended operation. The 3 mental non-virtues, covetousness and so on, are paths of action, but not actions. So the lam le, yine le mayin, got
kade tandere mago chu no ne le bakazu dus la yin le mai bakazu son yi son de la yin le mai le ma du de le dans la ni ga is what the law do te chaba ten go resata what the tenda do ku la sha nan ku sen lo du ju de re ni ka le o ta de re.
So among the actions of the body and the speech, those 7 we would say are path and action, and then the 3 are non-virtues of the mind are action. I mean, are path but not action. So the 7 are both. The 3 are just one. The
Samba jubishi imbe je what about what the ten na sen so son ne leje lan yin je ne le mai nos iji sombote na sen no sen luta sombote leje ne na sen no luta son ne leje lan yin ngandu lan yin beje le mai de zo mai beje what the ten do da what the
paths of action.
na sen so son ne leje lan yin je
le lan yin le mai yin
leje lan yin de ngandu penji lan yin beje lan mai de zo mai beje what the man lan mai nos
so le lan yin yin a le mai yin
le mai lo
okay le lan yin le mai yin
leje lan yin
leji lan okay all right. So these the seek injit seek zu yabuzu. So the three non-virtues. So when we look at the 7 non-virtues actions of the body and the speech, we find that those all are classified under actions as well as pathways. As well as paths of action. So we'll call them paths of action and action. So those 7 fall categorically under both. The 3 of the mind fall only categorically under the 1. Paths of action, not action. So the wording here, paths of action and action, I just wanted to get clear because we were speaking of them in terms of path and action, not paths of action. So I just wanted to clarify. So the path and path of action are the same thing. Lamdan Leilan Chipa.
Lada
Leilan.
La ina lelang bichawdo.
Okay.
Lelang sana le dan la se zojen de mar zojen. Ils sont de lain le lain le mai lo mar le mai.
Less so. Okay.
Ta ga
So
de mar ya
Kanga La. So.
kale lo do ku su kale kun.
So Rinpoche was saying, if we say these things over and over again, you'll slowly be able to truly understand what they all mean. So they are. So Rinpoche said, if it's a path, if it's an action, if it's a path of action, if it's a path, it's a pathway of action. So I was asking about those terms of path and path of action, and Rinpoche said, if it's a path, it's a path of action.
What the Lori Saji no Nabi Lende the Kabi Lendes Nije, Nabi Lende the La, Tombala Nguntan, Jiang Chaba, the Dagan David never Sondua. That Nabi Lending San Marbe, Nabi Lending with Debamago Jute, Samba Juata Dungachi, and the Tojuchi, and the Pension to Doji de Chi, what the Casa, Lelang to Sinsa, what the Sun, Lelang Nabi Lending Sachi. So
now when we look at the determination of the effects of actions, and we look at the three categories, the first category begins with black actions and their effects, so that's the section that we were currently dealing with, and we find three categories: the actual paths of black actions, distinctions of weight, and an exposition of effects. So we've gone over the actual paths of non-virtuous action. So we've gone over that section. Let me just make sure I read the final here. The 7 non-virtuous actions of body. I read it all. So I just wanted to make sure I got through all the covetousness and so on are passive actions but not actions. So we've gone through this entire section on the actual paths of non-virtuous action. We've gone over the 3 non-virtues of the body, 4 non-virtues of the speech, and 3 non-virtues of the mind. So we've completed that section. And now we get into the distinctions of weight. So we begin on page 227 in the English. And we find the distinctions of weight are of 2 parts: the weights of the 10 paths of non-virtuous action and the criteria for powerful actions.
Okay. Deba chua chuyore, deba chua chuyores, what the shade marva. Deba mago chutele, deba chua chuyore, chua chuyores, what the le chance, chiwasan deba chua, yangasan deba chua, what the chua shade marva. What the Tati chabatele, the Jiang chabatele, and then Kazonga shesonga. Ne. Sambi Jawas to son traffic in the number, Tambuji, Sambi Jawade, Takmate, Docha Kondo, Shoot Rabi, Kunana, Deba Mago Jute, Deba Chishu Dres, T. Debutan home. Digi, Debutale, Chung, and then Debutale, Tolusan of Shade, what the rhythm with the Ah. Roa. What the Sambi Jawa Ji Tude, Tuson Tabi Sheba the Cha Kondo, Naje, and the Trabu Kunana Deba Mago Jude, Deba Chishu
Lesso.
Taju Jawa, the nearby Juju, the nearby Juju, other Tombo, what Jiju and the College.
Okay. So distinctions of weight. So there are 2 categories: the weights of the 10 paths of non-virtuous action and the criteria for powerful actions. So the first category, the weights of the 10 paths of non-virtuous action, we found that we went over previously 5 things that make a non-virtue weighty or heavy, so a heavy degree. So when we look at weights, the reason weights is used here, we find that there are small weighted actions or small degree actions, and then there are great or intense degree actions. So when we look at the results of these actions, we find that the intense or the highest form of non-virtue, or the greatest degree of non-virtue, gives rise to a hell realm rebirth. A medium degree of non-virtue gives rise to a hungry ghost realm rebirth, and a small degree of non-virtue gives rise to an animal realm rebirth. So this is how we find the degrees relate to the outcome of actions. So we're going to get into that now, and it shows how an action now is made weighty. 5 causes that make an action or activity that we engage in a heavy degree, or weighty. We'll just keep using this word weighty. So weighty due to attitude are done with those intense forms of the 3 mental poisons. So if one has an intense amount of attachment, or intense amount of hatred, or intense amount of delusion, coupled with the action, and here we're using the example of killing, then it makes it a weighty, makes it a heavier offense. Sometimes they translate it as heavier, a heavier offense. Same word, I know, just how it flows.
And then deba mago chuja yuares yu jiwa nes su jiba shesang sheba shebar juas ta tambu su jiba tata su jiba leda marbe deba tata mauba su jiba sundele gabachin shesang sheba juala gashin sa zambi senta deba jesuirang jesuirang senta deba je and Raya Suju, Ranga Suju, the Suju can let the Tenzin Jujin, the Habajuba, Jendal Suju, Suju and the Abushidas, Habajuba to what there, Habajuba dancer. Tendo Tona, Yigashin Suju, Tonsuna, Il Gabache, Gabacheba dan, Yuremune, Sanshin. Sabi Senji Chebadan, Sabi Senji Shebadans, Yun Remene Ko Suya Solomon Batan and Sejabadi, Debachu. Tatu Koba Shejin, Lerela Monto, Subadans, Tatu Suju Al Gabaje, and then Seja Mobasin, Subadan, Dunga Trabu Jebe, Subadan, Jibajine, Shah meba shed jude and Suba what is the deba imata, Kushina, Kuleka Duja Mobujeju, and Sebaina, Debachures. Ta Shen Batan, Dunga, Shembatan, Dunga, Trebatan, Nyataba Mawatan, Hijo, Mengan Dunjin to Suba was not what there is a Tanga Maserujes, Mune, and what the Nyataba Medical Sejavina, Debachur, what about you, what there is? Kalel and
Killing that is weighty due to performance. So this next category among the 5, so we've gone over the first category of attitude, and the next category will be of performance. So killing with the mind delighting in and being glad about having taking life, or taking life in the future. So here, this is finding joy or being happy about life that was taken previously, life being taken now, or life being taken in the future. Then the next is engaging in the action yourself, causing others to take it up and praising it. So praising the action and then doing the action yourself, or causing or ordering someone else to do it, but either way praising or rejoicing in this action. The next is doing it with a mind that is pleased when such a thing is seen. This is the one that emphasizes the rejoicing more. So it's pleased in what is being. So doing it with a mind that is pleased when such a thing is seen, and doing it after prolonged pre-meditation and preparation. So thinking about it, making plans and so forth, and doing so with a mind that rejoices or is pleased by it. Doing it constantly and diligently, each time killing a great deal. So always killing, and when you do killing a large amount of sentient beings. Number 5, killing your victim by torture, making the victim suffer a great amount up to the time of that you kill them. Killing after frightening your victim and performing inappropriate actions. And killing while your victim is weak, suffering, or impoverished, or while the victim is meaning or piteously reciting laments.
다 송바데 녀보 메비치와 드렌도와 녀보 엔트도 메바 히난 디바 걸로 치부차 용거래 녀보 메바 레치와 내사 니지진도 사방가야 말레진스 녀마 지진도 수타가 좀 상생도 좀 상가도 말레바치 다시다 다와시가다 세바지다 세바주지다 중앙도래 해날 내바 해내가 좀 발라한데 마지바지 뒤도서 지마다 마지바지 뒤도 소노사 마지바지 어떤 것도 마와 추마하는 진로 마마와지 안에 샤츠와도 당와도 탐자와도 준비 생라 수바 마지바스 워도 마지바지 안에 시나 그와레 들어왔다 마지바다 뒤도서 못삼매바다 제 뭐서 여번은 티 여번은 거와로다. 뭐서 매버도 제 매버다. 저바 시체비 무투바다. 저바 시체보 무투바다. 지덴비 차들레 충어버투바 투발라 머리바우스 와드니에브 메비치와투바드레스 드메나니 디바카즈산지 주구사버용어레스다.
So the next is weighty due to the absence of an antidote, heavy due to the fact that there is not an antidote being applied. So while not taking any precepts on a daily basis, so while not applying the antidote of taking precepts such as the individual liberation vows or the bodhisattva vows or the tantric vows, so not taking those precepts, not renewing them daily, while not doing. So these are virtuous deeds. So while not doing them are the absence of them. So that just is the clarity. So the absence of the antidote is the absence of the virtue. So while not taking on precepts on a daily basis, while not doing such things as observing one-day vows, that is one of among the individual liberation vow, the 24-hour vow, on the new moon or the 8th, the 14th, or 15th days of the month, while not occasionally being generous, collecting merit, speaking about the teaching, making obeisance, rising when a respected person enters your presence, pressing your palms together in respect, or having an attitude of veneration. So these are all virtuous activities that could be applied with the absence as an antidote. With them being absence, there is the absence of an antidote, so it makes it a heavy karma. While not from time to time being ashamed or embarrassed or having a preponderance of contrition. So shame and embarrassment in this case are virtuous. So the sense of shame, it's almost like humility when I've heard it used, just as a translator's note. But it's a little stronger than humility. It's like a regret, the recognition of what you are. So it's like an embarrassment with humility, just to look at how the word in the Tibetan kind of feels. So shame, embarrassment, or having a preponderance of contrition, while not having reached either a state of freedom from worldly attachment or clear knowledge of the teaching. So these 4 are the absence of antidote. If there is an absence of antidote, then it makes it a weighty or a heavy karma. Then he digs on.
로바 ngo바셰 저 다 가데 마취들에도 마취 내가 저 신진세는 샤다 차고 주범이 내가 들은가지 던 샤티가 봐도 어떤 거 마취지 되게 어때 로바 ngo바셰 저 사지들에도 최진셰바 다기스 마취시게 되는도 다기 따와라 템베 춘드네 쇠바다 슈나네 지구다비 유지지 줄트베나 세장 네바메도 향바소 로다 간올라 때네 쳐보사 다고도 신전수서나 대바요 말레스 지구다메 ane saa thonga ka juttu shabares ane wote senje suyo chubambina deba kayo ma te chures uko lota yunga ke wote loba ngoba shimbicho jeba dharendo da macho.
Killing that is weighty due to clinging to the perverse that is done in reliance on any sort of wrong view. So, for example, there are those who kill out of a desire to be religious, relying on the views of those who make animal sacrifices. They think that there is no fault in slaughtering livestock because the Lord of all beings created them to be used. So here, clinging to the perverse or clinging to a wrong idea is that making an animal sacrifice, killing an animal, and then making an offering their blood, is in some way virtue. So clinging to the perverse is clinging to this notion that it is virtuous, and this then makes the killing, because it's mixed in with this perverse view, this wrong view, even weightier, even stronger. So this is number 4. And so there's a belief that some religious practitioners have that it's religion, it's virtue, and there's nothing wrong because the Lord of all beings created them to be used and gave them to us.
What Lebe Pabatume Casa Nashi Rebel Tenju Gusumbaruko, Nayu Tede Dungabo, Tedek Tenju Drebide, Shu Jujuna Ju Tenjus, Shu Machine, Deva Shatan, Chaka Chubamida, Shu Jujuna Ju Tenjudo, Nayu Tede Dungabo, Hazanga Ju Tenju Temeba, Tenju Good on what they were. Shu Jujuna Ju Tenju Drebota.
So we find that in Asangas, I forgot. Namshi Ripa. The
Nashi Ripa thank you go song go. Truth Shiribi thank you, soon the Nabi thank you.
So where we find in Asanga's text, I'll have to find the exact name of it, where we find the 3 of the views of the non-Buddhist practitioners to be wrong and meaningless, and one of them is that animal sacrifice is in some way a virtuous deed. So here, one of the points that are made in this text is made here about the animal sacrifice being a negativity because it is the opposite of the truth or the antithesis of the truth.
Tawad ngabatere ngabar marwa jibare ngabarwa ngabatere jele chewane tonu bonchewa ta ma machaba ta phama ta phonu ta lama ta yi chuba ta homa ta shansen ta dajumba ta rasaje seba ta tejin sheba tromene ba shejin to nasen ji chaji ba us wotengabu to
Number 5, killing that is weighty due to its basis is taking the life of a large animal, a human, a fetus, your parents, your aunt or uncle, someone such as a guru or a close friend, a learner, a bodhisattva, an arhat, a pratyeka Buddha. Also it is killing which is weighty due to its basis when you know that a tathagata cannot be killed and you bring forth blood from a Buddha with the intention to harm. So this is number 5. And then Triwa Dan Lenja, did see? Okay.
What did not the
Okay.
That deba mago chugunan suju what the suju deba chua chirava. Hama golea jematuba, goya, suju bilet jibaresita. Not sangone, and deba mago jut jeba in a deba chuare, Namason deba chuares. Can all machiba just add the marita 네 지구는 지와서 어디 뭐 지구는 지와 주갈시 제다 그걸로 무슨 말이 바지 수주를 나버렸어.
So even though killing is of the greatest non-virtue, so when we look at non-virtues, we find the killing to be the heaviest, the greatest non-virtue, we would still find that we would apply these 5 to the others as well. So when we look at it, we look at killing, we would say that the others are weighty also, and if they have these 5 present. So even though killing would be the most negative among all the non-virtues, we would apply these to the others as well. So it's important when we look at these points to heed them, because I've been asked many times about abortion. So we find here killing human, killing fetus. So we find that fetus is included within here. So whenever somebody is to take some kind of a birth control, it's important that he or she, make sure that there isn't a fetus there that's going to be harmed or killed by this, because it would be killing in this case if you know there is a fetus there and take something that makes it go away, or purposefully take something that make it go away, like an abortion. Rinpoche is relating it to a pill, like an abortion pill. So it's important that we know if there's a fetus present, because it becomes killing if there is. So it's important to take the medicine before the child is born, to prevent the child from being born, not after the child's born and take medicine that kills it.
Oh yeah, that or that.
So Rinpoche first said we're not doing questions, but then he said maybe John has a question, and then the Jatlo, the Truwa Chi Yure Dutsu Yana.
Okay.
Okay, and then if we have time, also, I know 2 people have questions. So.
My question is related to the topic from before, but with the general characteristics and the characteristic of.
Okay, so which one?
Yeah, the magnification of karma, when we're using the analogy of like a seed growing into something, the tree that's much larger. You know, in the actual process of a seed becoming a tree, there are many other conducive conditions that need to be present, the sunlight and fertilizer and so forth, that the seed, you know, the seed goes into the sprout, and then the plant kind of has to utilize all these things to actually become much larger. So is that also to be applied in the case of the internal causation of karma, where, you know, we create the karma? Either do we need to sort of like nourish and nurture the karma for it to actually magnify?
The leg, the chi leg, the chedrak she jang chedrak she leg, then the ewa je, then chewa, the kongi chiwa the ngama chiran songchuna the sopun chun chun, then shin chenmo yongdu, then the yine kongi chiwa the sopun the nyuku dan the kanga chen mambogu, the sa yapogu, then charpa yapogu. Then ngatsu the lei sopun, the drapodu chen go, the chewa, the chen go.
Sabe chijun ga ya dan bun karso ore. An se jagwa de temarbe nambe ge humulu glon to sukngalo an ta ngo chen chin go je mendu juji tamarbe. Ko amagla na ko mendu taro. Ko tidu de shirag che od mendu tabatla tene sanji ko nazi ne marbe. Shaja to bado ne many billion year chundeaga debutingo le peche was what to say.
The lei chun chun. Gar shene sheda chembo jegudu. then Chen garre. Then Natsu this the Sheba Nangla Chen the Garshene Jet the Chenmo's child.
Sheba look neba chigo neba.
Then the Sopun, the Sheen, the Charpa, the Genda, the Chen Mambo Go, then the Chenmo Cha.
The Gangal good, Jinga,
Then
never
that's
go.
Chen Garigo, the Chenmo Cha.
Chemachalo, what the Kobatasa, the Tawachibi is a single Tula Dene, Debachibucha, you there. Hobata Malubi to le, Tang, which in Pongos La, you could Tawachiburota, Tintoji, Debachibucha.
Then the Dipasana that the do did Chenmo Shagadu, the Nima Dakpar, Chenmo. The Kon Triwadan there, Nima Dakpar, the Sani, Nge Dipa, the Chenmo. Sani, Nani, the Chenmo Shagadu, Nge Dipa.
Chimas and the Leko Sa, Sadu, later the Chimacha, never do Kalikali, never the many Yomaris.
So Rinpoche is saying that, so it's in terms of the basis, so it's in terms of the completion of the karma itself that creates the degree of its magnification. So when we look at the example of what is it, I can never say the name, Manokabila, who insulted the community in 18 different ways, of learners and non-learners, so he called them the 18 different names. So because this community of learners and non-learners were such a powerful basis, this one act of saying these things became greatly magnified because the basis of that he was saying it to is a holy basis, is a powerful basis. So then I asked Rinpoche if these things if at that moment it's as big as it will be. And Rinpoche is saying that when the action is completed, so this was the answer, when the action is completed, in the future when the causes and conditions are present for it to ripen into an experience, then it will ripen into the experience that it is loaded to produce, or that it has the power to produce based on the action and the basis of the action and all of the other components of it. So Rinpoche said the conditions and so forth are more about the action itself and what was going on at the time of that action. Okay? So we find in the story of the small child who was then born, the Kona Shoka Jewa. So we find the story of the small child who in a previous life offered sand to the Buddha and then was born as King Ashoka as a result of this. So we find that the power of the basis of the offering at this point made it such a great experience. And Jalo Triwa, you're in.
Okay.
Okay. And then there's one more question. Yes.
Thank you for your infinitely compassion and guidance. Can I ask a question about daily practice?
It's 5, just so you're aware.
Okay.
If it's personal.
I'll make it general.
Everybody's kind of been on this track.
I'll make it super general.
Go ahead.
So your mind plays many tricks on a daily basis, wrong views in a smaller level. And oftentimes, instead of being honest with itself about what it's really dealing with, other things can offshoot that are distorted and not genuine. How do we get to our how is it that we can get to our genuine fears and genuine problems that maybe we hide, so that these other things that are fake and not real go to the side, so we can concentrate on what we really need to concentrate on?
So I'm sorry, it's such a vague question. So what is it that we really need to concentrate on, I guess? And when you say these things aren't real, are not real in terms of how we magnify them, or not real in terms of ultimate reality, because none of the things that we experience whatsoever are real in terms of ultimate reality. So I'm just trying to, how do we get through the things that are an illusion conventionally in order to deal with the conventional things that aren't an illusion? Is that what you
Yeah, yes. If you're repressing something that you don't know that you're repressing, and you're having like some strange thought, you're like, I don't really think this isn't me. There must be something behind this, but I don't know what. How can I
don't know how to ask
How
this.
can I investigate that?
So tsansang ngatsu lon lan chadu the triwa the kali kabudu chishina ngatsu dutsu yomare the yene the tsansang ngatsu the sheda lon lan chadu yene ngatsu the contra tsaken yomare then ngatsu the nyepo gare gangin sena the ngatsu contra tsaken yomare ngatsu nima dakpa contra yomare yene tsansang ngatsu the sheda lon lan du then ngatsu lon lana, then the ngatsu the gonja tugumare, lobjin she tugumare, then the chiran lapcha yurebe, gangisene chansan ngatsu nyomon sheda kali kapu yondu, then the kali kapu yona, then ngatsu the nga the nyune yin, the yongamare, gangisene nga lunlang.
Then the Chanya Shambata and Hiji Gons, and then the Chanya Maduba Gons, so what
we need to think about is applying the specific antidotes to the negativities as they arise. So when we have attachment that arises, then we apply meditation upon impurity or ugliness. When we have anger that arises, we apply the antidote of love as an antidote to that. When I think Rinpoche, so when delusion arises, we meditate upon dependent origination. So we apply all of these specific antidotes to the negativities as they arise in order for us to get rid of them in that sense. So I said to Rinpoche, a lot of times angers and various emotions come up, and I use the example of anger, but this isn't who we are really, and and as a result of these negativities coming up, we overlook the other things that we should be looking at. So Rinpoche said to just apply the individual antidotes to the negativities as they come up, so that they aren't crowding what we're trying to see or trying to do. We're out of time.
Yeah.
So if you think about this slowly, you'll slowly understand it. So do the concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. The Chishina the Togon the Ngatsu Geshe Dutsu Yomare the Kon the Drapa Che Guru Volkansi Gemma Tambo the Puke Jangu. Okay, I have some advice for you after. Remind me. Concluding mandala. So we'll do the concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. Thank you, everyone. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure land. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the three times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All-powerful Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wandak, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, the spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts, with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Tuji Rinpoche Gutsi Shapi Denonan.